Hello and welcome to another episode of Warm Blanket, the podcast where we embark on the journey to see what makes us feel good about Star Trek, where our love comes from, and what it means for us. In short, what is our warm blanket? My name is Gary, I'm your host, and I'm very honored to welcome here the one and only Irish Trekkie, Damien. He is best known for his YouTube channel, where he dives into those juicy details of the Eagle Moss collection, dives into some gaming shenanigans, and also he's the host of the popular Nerd Escape podcast. His presence and positivity is staple in the Star Trek community, and I often refer him as the ambassador of Trekkies. Please welcome Damien. Hi there, sir.
Wow, I'm humbled by that intro. Thank you very
Really?
much for having me.
That's who you are. That's every time when I think about you as being that awesome person who does the ship videos and talks about Star Trek and just you're always positive. And I think I'm not sure if you remember once it was just fun little homage to to your presence. I did kind of a bit of a Photoshop trick
Yeah.
with your face on some ambassador's face.
I remember that.
No, I
Yeah,
think that definitely. I think you're the cheerful ambassador for Trekkies in the community for sure.
cheerful ambassador. I will wear that proudly, and yeah, to my detriment. Yeah, positive as well. But listen, I think I am by default an optimist, so that probably just feeds naturally into anything I do.
No, it is, and the funny thing is when I thought about before this interview that you're not just known about Star Trek. I mean, obviously Star Trek is the biggest thing that a lot of people know you about, but you do have two subsidiaries that I really wanted to start off. You have two channels, one of them called the Nerdbird, and
Yeah,
the other one is the I Declare Shenanigans.
yeah.
So I know they came after Irish Trekkie, but how did they form?
Yeah, so yeah, they came after Irish Trekkie, so that was the genesis of it all. Northern Bird was uh, it's very inactive at the moment, but it may return. It was a venture to kind of get up to non sci-fi or Trek related content with my other half, and there's a few videos on there where we're just talking and kind of there's a hot sauce challenge and I get a makeover and stuff like that. And it was just an avenue for us to just have a bit of fun with. No great plan, no great intentions. I'm very fortunate to get on really well with my wife, which is always a good thing to say. We spend a lot of time together. Like I work from home, so that can be a good thing or a bad thing. And we just kind of wanted to just have a little bit of fun and just see where it went. So that was Nerd and Bird. And again, me being the nerd, her being the bird. And who knows what adventures will happen over there. And I Declare Shenanigans. Um, that was a direct result of Irish Trekkie, where Irish Trekkie began with model reviews, and it kind of just slowly transitioned into going into some gaming side of things with Star Trek Online, Elite Dangerous, some other kind of sci-fi simulations. And it was more, the reason that happened was I would get models every kind of fortnight or month, and sometimes the shipping was a little bit iffy, so sometimes they would be late, and I would be very anxious of the gaps in content on my channel. And again, being relatively new, looking back, I wouldn't have had that anxiety, but then I did, and I was like, oh, I need to have something in here, and I had a lot of fun, and met a lot more people in different communities and stuff like that. But as the channel matured, I kind of wanted to focus more on the models and Trek and just general sci-fi. And again, the Nerd Escape podcast, as you mentioned earlier, came in line with that too. So I said, why not just try um, just do a standalone channel like Nerd and Bird, and see where it went. And that really took off because I kind of started messing around with some Universe Sandbox and stuff like that. So that's my kind of dedicated gaming channel, which is quite at the moment because I haven't had the time to do gaming, and Irish Trekkie is just the sci-fi Trek related stuff. But yeah, YouTube gives you the options to do multiple channels as well, and yeah, it's working out. And I have no particular timeline. I kind of do it for myself, and glad that people enjoy along the way, be it Nerd and Bird, Irish Trekkie, or I declare Shenanigans as the name evolved into. But yeah, that's the long and short of that story.
That's awesome. And so definitely is something that the Shenanigans is connects to Star Trek. So because I remember the first couple of videos are more like spacey wacy related.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
like moons are getting into the Earth and then they explode and the slow explosion. I watched a few of them a while ago, and
Mm.
it's interesting to see the effects. But of course, it's it's always, from an outsider point of view, you don't want to be there.
You don't want to be on the receiving end of
No, not
a
at all.
meteor coming down. Yeah, like the one thing that I've really found looking back on YouTube, and that's where you mainly find me, is that you come in with an idea, and rarely, in my experience, does it go the way you plan. And Shenanigans ended up being a really fun adventure because it was basically me throwing stuff at Earth, or talking a little bit about science, because I have a general knowledge of a lot of things, no deep knowledge of many things, but I think we can all claim for that. But I was getting a lot of comments about from parents and kids saying that this really got them interested in thinking about space and science, and the forces at work. And that really kind of invigorated me to kind of go, oh yeah, because like when I was a kid, I used to watch TV shows about that, and now the internet is the way it is, and this is just a source for people to watch maybe with their kids. And like, I'm not there to be an enlightening source of information, but if I can maybe spark an interest in somebody, um, for them to maybe go and learn about, what is, the nuclear force, or, what is the speed of light, and what does that look like over the distance of a solar system. Um, I that's my main motivation. I love hearing stories like that. Same with Irish Trekkie as well. People like who can't get the models. I'm in a very fortunate position that I can do the reviews thanks to the support of the community. And if people enjoy looking at that stuff, that's my jam. That's what makes me want to make videos.
So how did Irish Trekkie born, in a sense? Is it surely that you wanted to just, like, oh, the Starship Collection came by and you just really wanted to start, or was there something that you kind of decided to do in a different direction, but that was like a best opportunity to start with?
It was a combination of a couple of different things. I vividly remember back in 2013 when I saw the first promo ads for the Eagle Moss Now Hero Collector collection coming out, and I went, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" Because I collected Micro Machines, Star Trek collection. I had a few of the Playmates. I was never a model maker, so these assembled, fully painted things were like, oh, that's my jam. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And they're saying it's going to be about 80 issues. And I was probably very idle at the time, looking for something. I'm generally a creative. I play music. I'm a bedroom rocker. Like I don't. I'm not a master at anything, but I love kind of mucking in, and I'm a quick learner. Do a bit of art and stuff like that. And I said to myself, I'd like to do maybe I could do videos with that. I have an iPhone 5 at the time, and maybe I will. And then I kind of looked around and I was like, I wonder is anyone doing any of these kind of videos? And I saw a few, and I was like, everyone has their own style. But when I was watching videos, I was like, I'm looking at someone who's looking at a model, and I'm like, that's cool, but I want to see the model. I don't want to look at you looking at the model. And I was like, maybe I just face the camera down on my table and just you'll see my hands, and that was it. Like, and I was just pouring over like the details. I wasn't kind of shouting out like lore or I was just kind of going, well, this looks cool. Oh, look at that, the detail on that tiny little decal. And I was picking up the phrases like the sculpt and the Aztecing and the paint applications that all came later. But it was very raw. It started off very raw. But it matures over time, and it became the thing that it is now. And again, a lot of things happen because of that very first video.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Like the amount of feedback, the people who you met, just like the podcast as well. It's amazing that what our journey has become for you. Just that one single Enterprise D video at the very beginning.
Yeah, yeah,
The next generation of reviews.
yeah. That's it. Like, I don't want to blow anyone's trumpet or anything like that, but if you had said to me that I would have had conversations with the likes of, John Eves and actors like Gareth Wong and, people like yourself and, Trek in the Tube and the Trek Collector, like the people that I would never have crossed paths with over here in the west of Ireland, I would have said like, no, that's not going to happen, like, and here we are, years and years later. Like, I don't have the biggest channel. I don't care that I don't have the biggest channel. That's not what I'm in for. It's all about I still enjoy making the videos, and the fact that it connects me with people that honestly, as I said, I would never have met as in any other way. That's the icing on the cake for me.
And that's not just because of YouTube, but mainly because of Star Trek. I guess because without Star Trek, we wouldn't be here, wouldn't talk, and we wouldn't know a lot of people for sure. So my next question is naturally, how did you get into Star Trek?
So Star Trek for me, I kind of felt like a lone wolf, so to speak. It like in my own house. I was a fairly quiet child, as I'm often reminded of as I was growing up, and never really bothered me. Didn't really hang out too much with people, for a couple of different reasons. But I was always very inquisitive. Like my mother and my grandparents would always kind of they'd always have many questions to answer from me, like, why is that, why does that look like that? And I always kind of gravitated towards science as well, science, nature and history. But when a sci-fi show came on, I would probably just watch it, be it Buck Rogers or any of the Jerry Anderson shows when I was growing up, like Thunderbirds and such. And then for me, my entry into Trek was TNG back in the late 80s. I never really, I in hindsight, I probably had an awareness of TOS, but for me, I probably felt it was maybe a little bit too old. It has a simplistic style to it because it's a late 70s, late 60s, early 70s show, and I never really kind of gravitated towards it. But seeing the crew of the Enterprise D, and the cool ships of the week and the aliens and the mad science and adventures that they went on, I was like, man, this is my jam. And again, my cousin later on was into it too. He's a model maker. Maybe not so much now, but back when he was in his teens, like he met the Runabout from the Kits and Voyager and so on and so forth. So we'd share conversations on that as well. But I just love diving into the shows on a weekly basis. I think it was Sky One at the time, and again, long before the internet, long before satellite television and all that jazz, there wasn't a huge amount available in Ireland, and it was cool. And at that era, then one show kind of led into another with Deep Space Nine and Voyager and so on and so forth as well. So it just kind of became this entity that I would always gravitate to. And then, the movies came in to my life as well. So anytime that they'd be on, I would probably just watch them, even if I watched them probably 100 times more. I would always still watch them. I still do. And yeah, it was just it would just get my synapses tweaking to kind of go, okay, well, like what's going to happen on this episode, and what techno babble will be going on. And it was always the tech side of it. The characters I just kind of absorbed through osmosis, but I think my kind of frontal lobes were always twitching at the gizmos and gadgets and science that was on display in those shows.
I'm not sure if you did that in back in the days when you started watching them, but I remember myself in school. I was watching Voyager and all the techno babble, and I was like, I just wanted to, I wanted to so much to be in that atmosphere, like like Harry Kim and Tuvok and everything. And I started talking like technobabble to my classmates, and it's like, what the hell are you talking about, Gary? I don't understand. This is the dilithium matrix. This is how it works.
The Heisenberg compensators and all that jazz. That's it. The flights of fancy, and yeah, like for the kind of people that were around me, there wasn't a huge amount. Maybe I didn't look for it as much as I could have, maybe, but because I'm sure that people were into it. But obviously, some people may not be kind of wearing that out loud and proud, because again, sports and other fandoms may take precedent, but I always kind of just felt it was my own thing. And that, to me, yeah, Trek was my own thing for many, many years until YouTube connected me with other people. And that can be a result of your own personality or your geographical location as well. You might be in a rural area where there aren't those kind of communities, and you could be in the luck of the draw where you are in a society or an area that has a lot of conventions that happen regularly, but not in my neck of the woods. But in years to come, obviously that changed for me. And I think that's kind of like Trek in itself as well. It does morph over time. It meant one thing to me when I was pre-teens, and it meant something different to me when I was in my teens. Thank you, 7 of 9 and company and crew. But and then when I was a young adult and an immature adult that I am now, it means something different to me, even though the shows are 20, 30 years old or 50 plus, because I did revisit TOS much, much later on and got great enjoyment out of it. And even the animated series, and again, I'm looking forward to the new animated series coming up now, but revisiting shows that are 50 plus and still getting enjoyment out of it because I'm looking at it differently than I would have as a child and an adolescent and stuff like that.
Yeah, same. I usually have the same as well, and I just I had a few conversations with Sean, Trek on the Tube, not to give a shout out to anyone, but why not?
Why not?
Hashtag so bro. So it's like I was telling him that I was recently watching just cherry picking Voyager episodes, and even I started rewatching DS9 recently, and Captive Pursuit, like not everyone's favorite episode, but I found so much enjoyment, and I looked at it in a different way watching it after 5 or 6 years now. which is crazy. I think just as how we evolve, Trek evolves as well with us in a sense, in a very personal level.
Yeah, and as I think of it, um, maybe not so much with current Trek, but definitely with TNG, that kind of era of Trek. Um, that's where the family side of it would definitely have come in. That, if I went back with my family now, I'd quite happily sit on the couch and enjoy Trek as an adult, whereas my kid would probably enjoy it, but they'd see the kid elements that would appeal to them, like, the science and the lights and the explosions and stuff like that. And, having that layer of engagement, no
Mhm.
matter if you're, have many decades behind you, or maybe you're in your first couple of decades as well. And that's what's cool about Trek. It's changed a little bit as of late, but there's plenty more shows coming that may avail of that kind of vibe. But yeah, the ever-changing face of Star Trek, which is good
Exactly.
after 50 years.
Absolutely. No, it's better to have something keep going and bringing you something new.
Yeah,
But you know, we'll go into that in the next episode.
yeah, exactly. We'll park that one for now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm kind of wondering, how obviously the show itself led you to do the YouTube channel, do the podcast, and so on. Um, Before that, how did it affect your life?
um, not not massively, to be honest with you. It gave me great enjoyment. Um, in my like day to day kind of individual, like as I said, I wasn't a social butterfly. Not that I'm belle of the ball right now either, but again, I was quite comfortable in my own company, and Trek gave me many hours of great entertainment and you know uh, great fodder for my imagination because, like as I mentioned earlier, I like to kind of muck in and kind of just create stuff from time to time, be it music in later years. But when I was a kid, I would draw a lot, and I remember drawing a lot of you know spaceships and the Star Trek deltas, because I in time I would occasionally pick up a book. From like be it a technical manual or the art of was the art of Star Trek. I think I had that book somewhere. Um, I loved the art, like seeing the concept art and the matte paintings and stuff like that. Yeah, it had the costumes and all that good stuff. But like that, I would just try to replicate that and like draw, and my mind would just go off in one. And like I remember having dreams, and I probably still have them, to be honest with you, where I would dream about finding a spaceship and just setting off, because like having, not that the world is not precious and unique as it is right now, even though it's going through some troubling times. Um, like my brain left this earth many times at warp speed, just thinking about what's out there. Like I would quite happily walk out of my front door now and just spend hours just looking up at the stars, going, I wonder. I wonder what's around that one now. Is there a planet? Is there an ancient civilization out there? I'm very confident there are aliens out there. I just think they're extremely far away. But
And be cautious to
it's
contact us.
that's it. That's it. Maybe they're like, let's give them a while to mature a little bit.
Yeah,
But
let's give another 100 years.
I'd say the in summary, which is a hard thing for me to do. In summary, Star Trek for me was just a fountain of inspiration. It appealed to my curiosity and fed my my hunger to learn about stuff, and made me look into different topics more than maybe I would have without having a show like that to fall back on. And I think I learned a bit or two as well, because again the characters are so good. TNG, again, it was always the best foot forward. I know people look back and kind of say like, "Oh, Roddenberry never wanted conflict," and yeah, conflict gives great story for dramatic shows, no doubt. However, it is nice when you see, and again, I'm not saying for right now, but I think it's very prevalent right now. But throughout our history, humans have done some remarkably stupid things, and we tend to do them quite regularly, even though we have history to rely on to maybe prevent us from doing that. But seeing humanity, collectively just, go out and try to better themselves and not be catty and, work together. Uh, I just think by osmosis, maybe I wasn't super aware of that at the time, but it was probably just refreshing to say, "Oh, like these people aren't being, a-holes. They're actually nice to each other, and they're working out a problem. I know they will fix it by the end of the 50-minute show, but they're pretty stuck right now, and they're in a bad spot. But let's see how they're going to get out of it, and they do by relying on each other. And I think that, would have formed my social and kind of moral code to a degree as well, in addition to like your parents and your peers do anyway. So potentially.
Yeah, it does set up a really good standard for not just for a casual viewer, but for basically for anyone. Because I remember myself seeing and Voyager comes to mind because that was my first introduction to the first proper introduction to Star Trek, because I started with I was very very privileged to see the Wrath of Khan, the Battle of the Mutera Nebula, like love at first sight, why not? But Voyager really showed, especially when I remember when I was a kid, I wasn't really polite. I wasn't really taking care of like learning and stuff. I was a kind of a broke kid in a sense. But Voyager and seeing that that standard that they present you was really interesting to look back in. And like, if they weren't there back then, I don't know where would I be right now, and what kind of person would I be. So it really showed me a good standard and a good level of, yes, this is how it should be.
Yeah,
I still believe that.
Yeah, that's cool, because like it's funny how you'll always go back to your first Trek when you're trying to explain something. As you probably saw for me, it's TNG. TNG. For you, it's Voyager. But like TNG, like the crew were fairly polished. Everyone was pretty cool in themselves. Whereas Voyager, you had like Tom Paris, the criminal. He had a checker past, and like the eager beaver, Harry Kim and stuff like that. So it was nice to see people thrown into a crazy situation that maybe didn't have it all together, but still could achieve and grow, and like, again, still embrace their past, but can continue on and maybe take the positives from where they were, to maybe navigate the roads ahead as well. So, and again, DS9 is very true to that as well, where people weren't very much together as individuals and collectively as well, but seeing that journey that, people do have their ups and downs. It's not a utopia that we live in. So, no one's perfect, but we can all be good. And if we work together, we're at our best. And I think, if we get that through osmosis, we'll be doing good.
Absolutely. So that kind of makes me think, like, with all these positive emotions and having that said, that like, I think about Voyager, you think about TNG. When someone shouts from the very distant, Star Trek, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Ships. Probably ships. Well, yeah, I'm going to say ships, because when you just said it there, I was just thinking ships. Yeah, spaceships. I'm like that little Lego guy in the Lego movie, the screaming spaceships all the time. I am not one of those people that is like a walking dictionary of every registry, the minutia. I just love. It's like I I I kind of I'm like a food critic. I don't know how to make the meal, but I like to eat the meal, and to give my poor reaction to it. Yeah, just like spaceships, just yeah, excite me in a good way, in a creative way. But yeah,
So
spaceships.
I asked this question from Chris the other day, because he has a massive collection as well, just like yourself, and but I think you have all of the Eagle Moss, right? You didn't just cherry pick. You have
No,
everything.
no, yeah. There's a couple that were elusive because listen, these are expensive ships, and uh, at sometimes I didn't have the funds to get them, and they're out of stock.
I
But
feel you.
they will be mine. But it's a pretty complete collection. Yeah.
So I was asking Chris the question that if Q were to pop up in your room and say that I'm going to take away all your collection, but you can keep one, what would you choose?
Oh.
Don't hit me too much.
I'm going to I'm going to be completely honest with you here. As you said that, I took special awareness of what was my first native thought, which I know can be quite difficult to kind of think of. But the ship that flashed up in my mind was actually the USS Discovery, and I the reason why, which may be your next question or maybe not. I'm sorry now for taking over, but the reason why that came to my mind was I felt, or I have a feeling that I watched this show um, come to be uh, much more vividly than any other Star Trek show. I was a passive viewer of TNG, Voyager, Deep Space Nine because the internet really wasn't there for those. So those communities weren't available to me. There was fanzines and everything. That's fine. I was never into those. But watching a show being teased like Discovery was, and seeing trailers and interviews and panels and stuff like that, I felt like I saw this show grow up and saw the different styles that the Discovery was in the initial trailers and what we saw to be in the third episode of Discovery. And I have a kind of pseudo connection, just kind of seeing that become a baby into an adult ship. And yeah, I kind of the design is divisive. Yes, it's like chopsticks and stuff like that, but I think I would leave the Discovery in my collection because I felt that I've had my time with the other TNG ships. I've had them for in my mind for 30 years now. And Discovery's that's just a little baby, and it can't go just yet. So there you go. The
That's
Discovery Crossfield class.
that's really thoughtful, and like you know what, like I love this revisiting in a sense Discovery as well because I'm not sure if you noticed, but when I was doing Discovery reviews back then, I wasn't really the fan of the show, and I'm
Hmm.
kind of like watched it once, yeah, fine. I had my opinion, but I never revisited the show or anything. And um, during and through this conversation with yourself and with Sohail, with Sean, and with other members of the community,
Hmm.
I I kind of got to grew to it, and your explanation just made me a bit more coming a bit more closer to Discovery in a sense. I'm thanking you to
Ah,
that you shared this with me because that's just beautiful. That's awesome.
you're
So
welcome. Thank you.
no, that's great. I mean, obviously there's no bad choice or good choice because
Yeah.
everyone has their own choice, and who is to decide to what's good and what's not.
Yeah.
So we talked about quite a lot in terms of you know um, next generation, that the one that you kind of started with, and
Hmm.
Discovery is the one that you would not give up just yet. Um, in terms of ships down the line, if you would have to choose one, I'm wondering, and this is kind of the main gist of the podcast. So if you had to think about something that comforts you most about Star Trek, aka what would be your warm blanket, what would you say your warm blanket is?
My warm blanket of Star Trek.
The one that, no matter what, you can always go back to.
It seems like an easy question to answer, but what's my warm blanket? What's my security blanket for Star Trek? Um, I I just the the kind of the adjectives and nouns of, like, hope and, being out in the frontier learning. It's like that was always like the distilled nature of Star Trek for me. Yeah, I've talked about ships and we've talked about characters, and but in the essence, it goes all the way back to the initial kind of tagline about, boldly going. And I just think, for me, that is my warm blanket, because I try to, I suppose in hindsight, when I look back on stuff that I do, I think everyone tries to boldly go where they haven't gone before. Maybe not where no one has gone before, but like when you're trying new things, and be it in whatever part of your life, that when you see a show embody that philosophy through the highs and the lows, and having it being a part of my life for the best part of 30 years, be it passively or actively as it is in the last number of years, I just get that kind of fuzzy, comfortable feeling when I watch Star Trek. And that kind of sums up pretty much any content that I make of Star Trek, because people do take fun out of me, and I'm more than happy that people do this, that I am the positive Trekkie, that I rarely criticize anything, because I generally like most stuff that comes out of Trek, because I'm a fan of the franchise. We all have our little bits of ownership. Like, as I said earlier, I gravitate to TNG when I'm using it as an example, because that was my first, and you were looking at Voyager for an example. But that's my little ownership of Trek there, because it was my first. But I've let Trek be Trek outside of that. If it goes off in a different direction, talking to cat people or space whales or whatever, it's like, yeah, it's a bit crazy. And that Irish accent wasn't great in the hologram there and Picard, but it's not going to ruin my overall sense of enjoyment of it. And the same with the ships and the uniforms or whatever. So I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but
I know
it's
like
just
if there's
that boldly
Fairhaven, that's not gonna
going.
bother
Yeah,
you.
it's the fuzzy, comfortable, fuzzy feeling I get from just absorbing Trek. And oh, do you know what? We haven't talked about the Kelvin universe. I do like that as well. But yeah,
By all means, but
the
it's kind
comfy
of
warm one, you know. But there you
it's like
go.
I think I told Sohail when I did the podcast with him that my primary warm blanket is everything that came from the TOS era till the Enterprise finished, and kind of Discovery, Picard, and the Kelvin movies are like small pillows in the bed.
You have your big duvet, and then you have your
Yeah,
your comforter on top or whatever. Yeah, exactly,
exactly. So
exactly.
that's how they all fit together in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, that's a comfy bed for sure. Like, definitely. I'm hoping lower decks will be like, the big groovy beanbag in the room that you can jump on and read a book on or something like that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's one heck of a Star Trek room there.
Aren't we very lucky as franchise fans, um, to have so many eras of the show? Like there was and it's often referred to, the golden age of Trek, with TNG right through all the way up to like Enterprise. But we're in a new renaissance as well, and yeah, it's been divisive, but honestly, they all were. If you look back at news clippings and interviews, check out the DS9 documentary where the actors are reading,
Oh
people's
yeah,
comments, and it's like, oh my gosh,
gosh.
why would someone be so mean? But trolling Trek is not a new phenomenon, and it's not exclusive to Trek as well. But
I think the
listen,
trolls got a bit more coverage in a sense. They
they
have more
get
chance
they,
to
yeah,
direct their
exactly.
voice towards to the void.
Exactly. They're like gremlins, don't feed them after midnight. Keep them away from water because they just like multiply. But I like going back to what you said about that question about, what is your starship of choice? Or like, what would if Q gave me that ultimatum? There's no wrong answer. And again, enjoying a show, you're neither right nor wrong. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. If you don't, fine. But someone else who does isn't your enemy. I'm sorry that you don't enjoy it, but like I am not I don't like eating fish. Okay? I'm gonna put that out there. That's on my Wikipedia page probably now if I had one. But I'm not going to actively search out people who eat fish or post about fish going, why do you do that? Like, oh my God, you're like, yeah, why aren't you eating beef instead of fish? Like, poultry for the win. Hashtag, like fish is weird, but like it's subjective. It's trolling just confuses me like no other. And the best defense is just to ignore. And again, don't feed them after midnight, and we'll be fine.
No, absolutely. So before we wrap up, I do would like to ask one more question, and it's a tiny bit Star Trek related, tiny bit not, and it kind of circles back to your shenanigans and Nerd and Bird.
Hmm.
You recently started a Twitter account, Trekkie EV.
Hmm. Yes, I did.
How did that come by?
um, so, as I've often, well, maybe alluded to during this fantastic interview. Great questions, by the way. Um, I like science, and I like many things really. Yeah, I'm kind of weird like that. Well, I'm sure most people like many things as well. But anyway, I digress. I especially like technology, and I've been fortunate enough to over the past number of years to kind of work towards a particular goal, and that goal was to, if possible, get an electric vehicle because I am. As a family, we're quite conscious of the environment. I have two young kids. Youngest is 4 as of last week, Mr. Dex, and my daughter Julia is 9 at the end of the month.
Wow.
And they're going to be around a lot longer than I am, and I want them to be on this most enjoyable of planets called Earth. We don't have a second one, and one person isn't going to solve the crisis of climate change or pollution or consumerism, but collectively, many small changes will. And adventures like electric vehicles are one opportunity, in addition to like recycling that we do. And again, there's the big money wall that's in front of everybody, like solar panels and storage. Not storage heaters, but different heating solutions for your house. Um, but we're going down the road of getting an electric vehicle, which is kind of paused now because of COVID. Listen, first world problems. It'll happen when it happens. So again, kind of like the vibe with Irish Trekkie back in 2013. I was like, maybe I'll just document my journey
Mhm.
going down this road because it's a brand new adventure. I know a little bit, not a huge amount about it, and I'm sure that there may be people who are not 100% sure about what it is. Is it a viable technology? Like, will I have range anxiety? Is it like your phone that you have to charge it every night and stuff like that? And I just figured along the way, we'll do that. And over the last while, I've been kind of documenting some of our trips that we've taken around the west of Ireland, and just having a little bit of not daily vlogging or anything, but just kind of capturing some of the scenery and
Yeah, those are the
places that
Irish
we've got.
Trekkie.
Yeah, the Irish Brekkie. Yeah, that was another one. But so that was that vibe, and the other kind of motivation there is when I was looking to go down this road. I consume a lot of information to try and become an educated consumer, and there's a lot of propaganda on both sides. So people who are for it, people who are against it, and they can be very cult-like, and I didn't like that. And there's a lot of myths on both sides, and I just figured that if I'm putting the effort to kind of wade through it, maybe I can add a different perspective. Again, there's many people out there doing it, but I would never let that be a barrier for someone to stop them from maybe talking about a topic just because someone else is. Have your voice. We live in an era of technology that, people like yourself and myself can get together and, create content for a podcast or YouTube or whatever, paint, cosplay, whatever your avenue is. But yeah, the journey of Trek EV, yeah, that'll continue once the world comes back to normal. And I'm very excited for it. And I'm a big fan of driving. I don't like speed. I like a comfortable, relax. And my wife and I just talk all the time when we're driving. The kids do their own thing in the back, and I just think it's going to be just a fun experience for my family that I'm hoping to share through Twitter and YouTube when the time comes as well. So we'll see how that goes anyway.
I smell a little bit of a nerd and bird coming back in that road.
Nerd and bird. She came back in a recent video there talking about COVID actually, and yeah, like she's got a lot of good stuff to say. Again, confidence will be one of her kind of areas as well. So she's a cool kiddo, and don't tell her I said that now because she'll hang it over me. But I'm lucky to have her on my side, and you'll probably see her in a few videos, and the kids as well from time to time on our electric journey.
Well, that's really good to know, and thank you very much for this conversation. It really, I enjoyed it so much. It's I really appreciate that you took the time and spent this time with me, sharing your thoughts. And I'm delighted. Honestly, I'm delighted. I'm usually I know what to say, but now this was really special. I thank you very much for being here. For listeners out there who listen to this podcast till the very end, thank you again. You can find Damien, and you have to help me out here. So apart from YouTube and Twitter as Irish Trekkie.
Yeah. You'll find me on YouTube under Nerd and Bird. I declare shenanigans and Irish Trekkie. That's no doubt. Twitter and Instagram are my fave, to be honest with you. You'll find me there. Just search for Irish Trekkie. You'll find me on those. Facebook. I'm falling out of love with Facebook, to be honest with you. But yeah, come say hi on Instagram and Twitter, and you might find a colouring book and stuff like that for yourselves to while away the days. And that's where we knock boots, yourself and Trek on the Tube, Kowalski, and man, one of the best bits of advice that I ever found out when I was growing up was hang out with the people that you want to be like. And that's what Twitter is to me. I surrounded myself with people that I admire. And again, I've had so much fun in this interview. I hate the word interview, but I've had so much fun in this conversation, Gary. And it's a testament to you as a creator. And I'm very fortunate to have connected with you and Sean and the likes across Twitter. And yeah, I've come across a couple of numpties along the way, but but they're easily blocked and stuff like that. But yeah, listen, surround yourself with people that you want to be like, and you're not going to go far wrong as well. So thank you very much, and yeah, I've had so much fun on this conversation. I'm not, I don't want to blow smoke or anything like that, but it's made me think about a few things as well. So thank you very much.
And me, and you certainly brought me closer to discovery as well, among other things. So, and again, this was fantastic. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for everyone out there listening to another episode of Warm Blanket, the podcast where we dive into our quest to find our warm blanket. And on that note, live long and prosper.